why are companies heavily investing on AI, but they don't see any change?
A lot of the time we just do demos, we just do things for what I call innovation theater. But there is no impact. Your investor pushing you to do it. CEO is asking everybody to do some demos. The mandate to say, I need to transform my business to achieve an economic result, which is cutting my cost. AI is a tool that you have, like many other tools, but it needs to be serve a purpose. You have the smartest employee of your company is always there, is always available, is always present. He never take a sick day, but you living there in a corner. The cash, the risk, of a company. You need to make sure you deliver an outcome, something that actually has tangible value.
So this is the very first live recording of LightbuLBS by flagship podcast of the Entrepreneurship Club. We're really excited to be recording our very first live session and even more excited to be joined here by Lucio. Lucio is the Chief of Staff of AI 71. He's also the former Associate Partner at McKinsey and the author of the book AI Transformations for Operators. Over the course of his career, he spent more than a decade working with senior leaders across industries on large-scale transformations. And his work today sits at the intersection of AI, strategy, and operating models. What makes his perspective really interesting is that he focuses not just on what AI can do in theory, but also how it translates to actual real business outcomes. And that's exactly what we're here to discuss with him today. Lucio, thank you so much for coming here. We're very excited to host you.
Thank you. And I'm also an LBS alumni. So I did the LBS in 2010, so MBA, old campus, but it was very nice to be back at school. I'm glad to be here.
So, Lucio, let me start by understanding and discussing the core problem that comes whenever there's an AI transformation project in companies, right? So, why are companies heavily investing on AI, but they don't see any move or any change in their EBITDA?
Yeah. So the reason why I start to be more active, both on LinkedIn and write a book as well, is for few years now, a lot of people talk about AI transformation. But when we talk about AI transformation, a lot of the time we just, okay, we give everybody Copilot, or we do demos, or we just do things for what I call innovation theater. No? So we invest a lot of things on activity, but there is no impact on the EBITDA. And the reason is they focus on moving and doing things rather than focusing on what is the end goal. I did a lot of transformation. So I've been in McKinsey from 2006 till 2021, and I did the project in mining, in energy, in public sector. And when you do a transformation, you need to make sure that you involve the people and you have a top-down leadership mandate. And you can see now the narrative is changing. Now McKinsey published the AI manifesto. We also recognize that the leadership needs to be involved. You need to invest in the capabilities of the people. You need to invest in change management, transformation capabilities. You need to focus on what you want to transform. Because I think if you were asking a couple of years ago why people are doing AI transformation, they were not really able to articulate why. I mean, it was a bit of fear of missing out. Everybody was doing it. Your investor pushing you to do it, or the CEO is asking everybody to try to do some pilot or some demos. But it was more to show they were doing something rather than having the mandate to say, I need to transform my business to achieve an economic result, which is cutting my cost, increasing my revenues, reduce the time to process something by X, to be able to actually generate an impact. AI is a tool that you have, like many other tools,
Right.
but it needs to be serve a purpose. And the purpose is not just sake of transformation and do vanity metrics, but is actually create an impact for the company.
Right. Where do you think that this issue is? Because again, like you mentioned, you've been working on transformation projects across industries. If this problem is coming in every industry, would you call this a problem with the tech? Even though AI is advancing so quickly, is there still an issue with the tech, or is there something with management that we're doing wrong?
No, it's not the issue with the tech. So the transformation is not the lack of tech or intelligence in the tech, is the lack of clarity at the beginning of what you want to do, and then invest in the time to transform the workflow or the process you want to change, embedding AI in a new process, and then making sure that that is what the people actually use. Because if you use AI as an assistant tool, it just stay on the side. And when I was reading, and maybe I anticipate something we might discuss later, no?
Yeah.
So let's say you have the smartest employee of your company in a call center, no?
Yeah.
And that guy knows all the calls that you ever done, knows all the policies you ever done. He's always there, he's always available, he's always present. He never take a sick day, he never take a 5 minutes break, no?
Yeah.
But you living there in a corner. And people do their job, and if they want, they just go to him and say, oh, I have this problem, how can you help, And that is there to assist you. What you have to do is taking both capability and bring it in the workflow to make sure that the calls pass through this person.
Right.
No? And then you can have, you need to make sure you have threshold rules, escalation mechanism, reversibility to be able to intercept potential errors or mistakes. But you need to embed the AI into the transformation, into the workflow to make sure it actually works. Because if AI is defined by an innovation lab, an AI factory, somebody outside of a business workflow, what's happened in one of the cases I also describe in the book is they did the transformation of a process and they made the process digital and then they wanted to add on it AI, but it was done outside of a business function. And when they give it to a business function, they say, okay, I don't recognize this, I was not involved, or they didn't add this, or they didn't optimize the process. So it was a lot of resistance.
Yeah.
No? And they were going back to doing things or manual or by mail or by calls instead of using the digital workflow that was created for that. So having the business involved from the beginning in clear business objectives is what you have to do. Otherwise, you just have everybody's using AI. IX people are using Copilot. We have done a demo or pilot in every function, but then it stays there. You optimize for a different thing. You try for one things.
Right.
You don't optimize for activity. You need to optimize for an outcome, and the outcome needs to touch EBITDA, the cash, the risk, or the speed of a company. It doesn't touch that. It just what I call vanity metrics.
Very interesting point that you take up, especially about the vanity metrics and the distinction that you've drawn here for me between having AI embedded in a workflow versus just having AI on the side for assistance. What I want to understand is, let's say we're implementing AI in the workflow. During implementation, there is an activity trap that you even mentioned in your book and in our conversation before. What goes wrong when you start implementing AI in the workflow, and what activity traps, sort of we get stuck in?
So the activity trap is confusing doing something for actually getting some results out of it, no?
Right.
And you mistake doing activities for having an outcome at the end. And I realized that actually when I was here at LBS, the first time that I got the concept of an activity trap, because in my first trimester at LBS, I was doing tons of stuff. So I was in all clubs, all events, all company presentations. I was going meeting alumni of all the different companies. And so I was very busy, no?
Yeah.
And so if you see on paper, I was doing all the right things. I met hundreds of alumni. I went to dozens of company events. But because I was so diluted, I was not moving in the direction of finding a job. And what changes, you need to be more purpose and mindful of selecting few things. For me, in that case, I should have selected 3-4 companies, one sector, and go a bit more deeper and really double down on investing my time in making sure that I know the company, know the people I work with, and then you can land the job. And a lot of transformation, a lot of things, people just confuse doing stuff for actual progress. And that's what you need to think. It's like when I brought the accelerated doctrine, so the beginning is you need to anchor to value. So make sure you touch levers value. The second is you understand the risks because you don't get to go blind to transformations. And the third one is choose few workflows where you can actually create value, demonstrate the value, and then you scale up.
Right.
And then to demonstrate the value, you need to embed the AI into the workflow.
Right.
And you need to have the people working with that in mind from the beginning. And our example in the book is we went to a company and they created a beautiful demo. Like it was like an amazing demo. And the demo was for the chairman to go to an event and showcase to the other people his peer this demo of an amazing things they can do with AI.
Yeah.
And the demo worked perfectly. It was the right demo, no problem at all. But then we say, okay, now put this demo into production. And we realized because the company we hired to do the demo, their job description and the mandate was create a beautiful demo by this date. So I actually did it in a production environment that was a company owned, the advisor, and not the company actually had to use it. And it was done in a way where it was non-scalable and non-replicable. So they have to think about, okay, you have to bring it back, say, okay, now bring this demo in my own environment. They did that, and then we say, okay, how do we make sure that actually people use that?
Yeah.
And they didn't thought about the change management. So the change management transformation is the next step you need to think about after you embed it into the workflows and you launch in production. You need to make sure people actually use it. And how do you do the change management for that?
Very interesting. I'd like to go deeper in this idea of choosing that specific workflow, really implementing the transformation that you have in plan. and creating value, like you mentioned. Now, my doubt is on the third part of this area where we're creating value, right?
Yeah.
What sort of metrics do you think are the right ones to pick to understand if value is actually being created and we're actually reaching the EBITDA versus, metrics that you think might fall short and cause to, get stuck in the trap?
Yeah, I wrote in the book is the power levers. No, so I wanted to create something sticking in people's mind to think if it doesn't touch one of these levers, it doesn't work. And the power lever are the pricing or commercial execution. So if you're not able to augment your revenues, reduce your churn, increase your upselling, it doesn't create value. The second one, O, is operating cost. So if it doesn't reduce your cost, operations doesn't add value. Working capital, if it doesn't free up capital, like in cycle times, money getting paid, or disputes that need to be resolved faster, so free up working capital is one. Another one is speed, execution speed. So you're able to bring you faster to decision, compress cycle times of things, or risks. So it's able to get you a reduction of your risk that you might leak some value later on. So if it doesn't touch one of these, it's not working. So it doesn't bring you the value. And I was talking with a friend who works in private equity. We're discussing that briefly. So he's in a company in Europe, and they have to demonstrate value from AI. And as well, what they did is they look across all the different functions, and they said one of the key cost function is a call center, because we serve all Europe. So we have this call center in Spain with a lot of young professionals that speak all the different languages in Europe, and then they reply to calls to the different part of Europe. And we are bringing a company to actually replace some of those calls from a real person to an AI with voice over AI. No? And the real impact is transform some of those FT personnel into an AI cost.
Right.
No? And the company will be paid per call.
Yeah.
Now, some of the concept we maybe touch later is if you are thinking about AI, you don't need to think about a task and activity, but you need to think about an outcome. So getting paid per call, per something that you actually complete. Now we're doing that, they are testing, and the initial tests were actually quite good.
Yeah.
And so they will be able to reduce the EBITDA, so reduce their costs, increase their EBITDA, and therefore get an higher valuation later on. No? And the concept of platform, also McKinsey now pick up, is if you are able to create those rules and processes in place in a call center, then you're able to replicate it across. You create a platform that can create value across your portfolio and not just one company.
Very interesting. I think from what I take here is, first of all, those 5 power levers, right? And what I understand is that while AI is being implemented, if the implementation doesn't touch one of these levers, there's definitely a value leak. We took that up.
It can be a value leak, or it can be no impact. So it's something that you just say, fine, it's nice to have, but it doesn't really change the business itself.
Right.
No? So at the beginning, it was a lot of AI tools to do meeting summarization. It saves you 5-10 minutes from your daily schedule, but it doesn't really have a clear impact on your EBITDA at the end of the month. You say we have less people around. Yes, it creates efficiency, but it is not the first use case. If you want to do something that actually just replace a feature but doesn't have a strong impact, you can be replaced.
Right.
You can be replaced by any of the other models as they move up into the application layers.
Why other AI implementations have really been failing, how you were sort of, able to choose the right metrics and start in a way that we don't fail, right? Now, let's come down and really try to understand the execution,
Yeah.
right? When we come to the execution, how do we execute AI in a way that it moves from just advice to actually do some action, make some changes in the organization?
So in all transformation, not just about AI, you need to have the leadership of a company, and really lead the transformation. So if you don't have a CEO really pushing and using it and really monitoring, do we have an impact, it will not change. If you don't have a CEO that actually is working with you to change the workflows, you will not have the transformation. If you don't have a CFO that at the end certify actually we got the EBITDA, it's not just theoretical money, actually money in the bank account, you don't have a transformation. Now, in the largest transformation I did in Australia, we saved $1 billion to a company which was already leading in the market, so we still managed to find value.
Yeah.
But the role modeling, the change management, the capability building, and the communication were key aspects of a successful transformation. And AI is a transformation. If you actually change the workflows of how people work, you need to make sure you understand the impact on both people. And you change the way they work, you embed that, and you create value for them if you want to retain those people and give them a higher value job. You might just need to let them go.
Very interesting about the leadership point that you pick up. Is that something even in your experience you've seen where leadership becomes a constraint in AI transformation?
I mean, leadership could become a transformation, a constraint in all transformations. Because if there is no buy-in of leadership, people will just don't do it. Why they have to do it? So they just follow what their boss will tell them.
Yeah.
No, so they will use, maybe they will use a tool on the side to be more efficient. If they use Claude, they use OpenAI, they use Gemini, they might use Copilot to become a bit more efficient. But to really change the way you work and to really change, for example, the example of a call center to route a certain number of calls from people to AI, that needs to have a buy-in from the leadership, because the leadership has on one side we capture the benefit for the company, but also need to take the responsibility if things goes bad. So we need to make sure that we put in place the right governance and understanding if we go through a certain deviation versus what we expect, how do we make sure we scale it down or we contain?
Interesting. Now, when we talk about the leadership buying in and really working on embedding AI in the workflow, I want to understand at what areas of the workflow can AI really be embedded into? Is this just automation systems, or is there some level of decision making that you think AI can do right now or in the near future?
No, the real impact of AI is moving to the decision.
Decision making.
Yes. So, and our colleagues here have been working a lot on digital transformation. Digital transformation fundamentally is taking an analog process and putting it into the digital world. No? So you have a checklist when you go and do some monitoring inspections. You have some form that you sign when you are in the banking. No? And you bring back into the digital world in a digital workflow.
Yeah.
No? But usually in a digital transformation, there's still the human that is in the lead. So the decision still requires a human to press approve, or there is an escalation meeting, or there is a committee to make decisions. So it is still human in the center to make the decision. The digital helps to move a process faster, to get track of the process, to understand where things are stuck in the process, and retrieve information much faster. No? Adding AI on top is actually delegating some of the decision to AI. So the AI agent should be free to reply to the call and close the call without asking a human. Should be free to decide if a claim needs to be accepted or not for insurance. No, should be decided if I can reach out and send cold emails, and then they come back to me and reply to them. If there is a discount request, should be able within certain thresholds and rules to say yes or no to those discounts without a human intervention after. And the human is to just on top saying, did I reach enough discount? Do I need to tune down or not? The flexibility that I give. So the AI on top of a digital transformation is to get to the decision.
Right. And how do we set constraints in this decision? What decisions are safe to be made by AI versus what decisions should we keep in the hands of humans?
So you need to understand the risk about the second point of accelerate is really classify the risk. No? So what risk do you have if this workflow or part of this workflow is given to AI? No? And in the example of a call center, you can, in the first few minutes of a call, or maybe you have a first set where people need to decide which type of case it is. So you can really define a certain case and a certain sentiment of the call.
Yeah.
And then you route it to an AI. Or if a claim is by a certain value or a certain type of accident, you can leave it to AI. If I want to try to sell a certain product with a low value, high quantity, I can let it go to AI. So you need to choose what, even in a large call center or in a large claim resolution, is now a certain point they say this is high volume, low value, for example, and give it to AI. So you can be strategic back, prove it there, and then maybe you give in a bit more.
So the idea is to set constraints around, understanding. Let's take an example of a call center, is to understand constraints around sentiments and which ones are routed to AI.
Type of calls. So because it could be a call for an emergency or a call like my battery doesn't work, how do I change it?
Yeah.
No, depends which type of calls. If it is a maintenance call, if it is an emergency call, depends what type of calls you have. You can leave it to AI or not.
Got it. And this decision of, again, if you stick to the example of what type of calls,
Yeah.
this decision can also be stuck with AI, or is this a decision that a human makes first, is understanding the sentiment and then routes it to AI versus keeps it with
No,
them?
the AI can understand sentiment
Right.
because it can understand from word or speaking the sentiment of the call. And then you can say, if you perceive the sentiment goes to a different level, you can say, let me pass you to my manager or to somebody else.
Right.
So if you see the layers of AI, the lower level, there is the energy, then there is, was mentioned by the CEO, then there is the infrastructure layer, the GPUs, then there is the model layer, where like Anthropic or OpenAI, the other actor, and then there is the agentic application layer on top. We're talking about the application layer, no?
Right.
And the model, the AI model is the brain, but then in the agentic layer, you can define rules and thresholds and guardrails.
Right.
So for example, for my wife, we did an agentic AI for the concierge of her kids' playground.
Oh.
No? And that is that build on OpenAI on top of it. And then he has as documents and knowledge you give to the agent,
Yeah.
all the information of previous calls, previous messages, the opening hours, the prices, etc., etc., etc. So those are the gathered. So you say, look, I can give these offers, I can give these replies, the beast tone. And then the question that arrive, you look about his knowledge, his previous conversations, and then reply.
Got it. So I think we've fairly understood about execution under decision making, and trying to sort of unlock value there. Now, when we come back to the accelerate system that you mentioned, the one that we can use for understanding risks of implementing AI and other parts of it, how would you say, from a founder's perspective, or from a small, medium enterprise perspective, like you mentioned, the project with your wife, how would you say that founders, owner managed businesses, smaller teams can really apply this accelerate system and to essentially build something?
So the accelerator framework is more for how do I transform things. So is the AI is anchored to value, make sure you get the value out of it, and you look at workflows where you can actually distinct value. And then the steps are classify the risk, choose 3, then you embed into the workflow, you launch into production. When you get the value, you teach the workforce, and then you scale it and you report the EBITDA at the end. There are different things. So if you are an entrepreneur and you want to use AI, I was reading today about this entrepreneur in the UAE, where he's built his own chief of staff using AI, and this look after his business and personal life. And so you can use AI as your assistant, or to reply to emails, or to one use case that he did is he upload the invoices into their own ERP, or he check for schedule, he help him prioritize things. So you can use AI to augment your capabilities and expand what you can do. And you create specific agents for yourself. So in my wife's business, what we want to do next is an agent for payroll. So she can, instead of her calculating the payroll every month, because it's like set of rules, she can have an agent that actually can build the payroll for her and then do the payroll. Next could be an accounting or bookkeeping agent. So she can dedicate her time, instead of doing those activities, to something more value added, which is meeting with the customers, looking for new business opportunities.
Right. And now that we've discussed about transformations that can be done in smaller teams, founder-led teams, or even small, medium enterprises, could you contrast this with how the system would apply in a larger organization in a bigger perspective? Maybe let's say private equity, you take that as an example.
So private equity, as we were discussing before, they need to show value because they buy a company and in 5 to 7 years, they want to get an exit. And the exit they create by increasing the EBITDA, they can increase the multiple of that EBITDA. So the EBITDA expansion, multiple expansion. And what you can do with AI is if you look at those 5 levers, you actually need to look at the cost, you need to look at the pricing, you need the working capital, the risk, etc. And then creating a platform so you can replicate it across the portfolio. Because if you work in a call center for a company, you can replicate it across the other companies as well. The accelerator is actually thought more for a large company thinking about transforming using AI to transform.
Right.
But AI is available for everybody. So you can look at where you spend your time as a sole entrepreneur or a founder and think, what about these activities I can outsource to an AI agents or to AI to become faster?
Right.
Now, if you do, for example, cold calling, proposal writing, now if you have some templates in some of your voice, your tone, the way you reply to email, you can leverage AI to actually do some cold calling or cold emails or replies.
Got it. Again, from an execution perspective, now that we've understood what metrics to keep, where we can understand value leak or understand how value is actually being organized, we also have a system for implementation of AI in a business. Now, let's really talk about how we can redesign the work, the roles, how we can structure the roles in an organization, who gets accountability of the AI working, how it stops us from killing speed here. How do we structure roles in an organization around the implementation?
Yeah, so you need to have what we call like a work stream or workflow owner.
Yeah.
So you need to have the leadership buy-in for sure, and then there should be somebody who is responsible for that workflow. And the workflow could be procure to pay, lead to cash, hire to retire, and this person needs to be able to articulate all the different steps of this workflow and understand where to embed the AI on it. You need to have some orchestration layers because AI, if a system do not talk to each other, if you don't have an API to connect, doesn't work. So you need to have some level of orchestration. Orchestration layer is another layer that you want to have an AI transformation because you need to have somebody who is accountable, who get the benefits, also the responsibility when things doesn't go as per plan.
Right. Can we maybe take this up by an example? Let's take any example of a workflow and see how the person in charge would be implementing AI in it.
So let's say procure to pay, no? So there are the different steps of a procure to pay. And if you're being consultant, you were doing the swim lane of a process, no? The first thing you do, you really to understand the process that you have, no? And that in that case, you have a purchase requisition, or you have one of the function where request something, and then you say, okay, this request, look at the different thresholds. Based on the threshold in the inventory, we might need to send out a request to an external party to actually get that. As soon as you get it, you confirm that you get it, and then you actually release the payments. Now, if you look all of that, you might do automatic order placement when inventory get to a certain level, or you can qualify or not qualify new vendors in an automatic way, or you can make sure that people reply or not reply or give you feedback on the material when it is purchased, on the level of service. You need to look at the workflow and understand where in the workflow some of AI capabilities can accelerate, reduce the risk, reduce the variance, or free up time for people that can do something else, or you reduce your cost.
Got it. Now, if we quickly summarize the discussion that we've had before we open the floor for questions for you, if a founder today is building an AI company, let's say they read your book, right? What is the one thing that they keep in mind from day one on how they should design their company differently?
So I think if you are building a company, to look at AI. So if you are building an AI company, the suggestion is don't build something that can be just a feature or something that if OpenAI tomorrow look at it and says, oh, this look interesting, let me just do a release of the things and I just kill your market. That's something you need to pay attention. So you need to have even some data advantage that other people don't have. You need to have some workflow advantage. You can be embedded. You can have a distribution advantage. So what is your advantage that you have versus OpenAI or Anthropic or Mistral or others to just make a slight release and kill you? So that's something you need to pay attention to. The second thing is you need to make sure you deliver an outcome.
Right.
You get paid per call, you get paid per something that actually has tangible value.
Yeah.
No? And if you see what Sequoia just released about the service now becoming a new way to target AI. So you just sell a service, but you are embedding AI in the way you do the service. So you actually leverage AI to cut your cost and get into both services. Or if you are just an entrepreneur doing any business, you should look at AI for augmenting your productivity and the productivity of your team.
Yeah, and that I think could be linked back to the metrics that we initially discussed. Great. We've covered all our questions. The floor is open for questions for anyone. Feel free to speak up if you think voice is going to be an issue. We do have mics that we can share with everyone.
Hello, but my name is Bob Harp and I know my is 2018. Thank you for the sales channel is paying facial. And you gave a couple of examples about how AI could be used to outcome and how AI could be replaced in organizations, such as the call center example. In that example, for example, it's very obvious. It's a binary to replace the person with AI, and I think it's very obvious to link that replacement or transformation to outcome. In some, in most, or then in general, lots of scenarios, it's not very obvious to show the results or the impact you would get from help from AI. For example, let's say I'm working as a growth manager in the SaaS company, and I'm working with the clients to increase their revenue by using our software.
Yeah.
And I'm using AI to help me prove value to the client. And so for example, in that scenario, are there different ways to show the
Value.
impact when it's not very straightforward?
Yeah. So the why I describe that use case and why I choose and the accelerator choose this first second C is choose three is because you want to prove value from AI. If not, you remain in the AI transformation deficit where you actually spend a lot of money, you don't see results. No. So it's always easier if you prove something that actually create a tangible EBITDA impact. So then people see there is value out of it, and let's now go into less clear use cases. If you take your case, so I don't know what in that case you are selling, but if you sell growth and your software helps to sell growth, but you can be maybe able in the same amount of time to reach out to more people or to reply to more people. Maybe you are able to do some upselling because AI can maybe help you to create some upselling opportunity. So if you are able to say, look, before us, you are having a certain revenue per month per employee, with our software, because we augment those capabilities, we actually sending out multiple of number of emails, we reply much faster, and therefore we probably able to show an amount of revenue uplift, or we are able in setting better the price, or we're able to increase the quantities. But if you are not able to link it to something that at the end goes to the impact of EBITDA, people might just say, why am I spending this money? And you might go into the risk that at a certain point, if there is a cost restructuring or if there is the next big things coming up, now is AI, they might just go to somewhere else. So you always need to be able to show to your client why your software and why your use of AI is able to augment their revenues. And it could be you get more customers, and then a certain percentage of the customers convert, or you increase the conversion rate of those customers, or you increase the revenue per customers, or you reduce the cost, the acquisition cost of the customers. But you need to have a metric in the revenue part where you're actually touching. To be client acquisition cost, it could be lifetime value because we manage your client better, so we stay longer. It could be we have more customers in the flow, we actually convert more customers from this flow. But you need to have something that says you are investing this money with our software, with our tool, and because of the use of AI we have, we are actually able to touch some of these metrics which have an impact in your EBITDA. Because we are looking for ROI. Fundamentally, companies need to have an ROI out of their investment, and that ROI needs to be higher than the cost of capital. If not, we are destroying value. Okay.
Thanks for the presentation. How do you see AI growing in the financial services?
So there is a lot of push in the financial services, and there is a lot of experimentation. The financial services is also very highly regulated. So they will need to be an understanding of what how AI can work. So if you, even last year, people were saying we're going to have a very, 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 very large model and small specific models. And the small specific model which are trained might stay in your prem. Because there are conversations in the UE where they say, look, I want to use AI, but I don't want my data to get out of the UE, or I don't want my data to get out of my building. So AI will help, but you need to find a way to make sure that you implement AI in a way which is compliant with the banking requirements. But there is a lot of application you can do in AI. So you can do forecast analysis, you can do in the private management, private wealth management. If you come to me, I can ask AI, give me a report about all his investments, his preferences, or write me a report about the market condition for this person, which is really customized and tailored to this person. And because I use AI, he's able to do it faster, and I can get more insight for this person. Or you can give advice for investments. So like robo analysis for investment is also an AI application. So there are a lot of applications, depends who you are in the banking and what regulations you might have, or some smaller models. You cannot go outside, you bring your data outside of a country or of a banking. But there is for sure a lot of application that banking is using AI in risk management, client management, forecasting, plus all the others, which is cost optimization in support functions.
Added. ET workbook.
Oh, thank you. Thanks whatever I got presentation I saw and the hand-on experiences. As you mentioned, and well, as a startup founder nowadays, you want to not just build a feature, but you can look into workflow advantage, data advantage. Can you maybe elaborate more? As a startup, usually a bit limited in resources and data can be expensive to acquire. How do you build your unique data advantage and workflow advantage?
Yeah. So because your resources are limited, actually using AI could be a great advantage for you, because you can use AI as your marketing manager, you can use AI as your engineer, no? But you need to have you as a CEO, as a founder, needs to understand how to drive those, no? About the data really depends. There is a startup in the UAE who just raised quite some money, and they do synthetic data of extreme events. No, and they sell those data to banking actually, because they say you don't want to go through a financial crisis to see how the model react. So actually they are building synthetic data of extreme events, and they're selling both to insurance company or to other companies. No, there is the example of the company who found the Pokemon cards. There are people going around the cities taking pictures, and actually the value was in both pictures. So they gamify the data collection. So you need to think a way about even building synthetic data or have access to some relationship. So you might not have the data yourself, but maybe you have a good connection with a company which can actually partner with you and do a revenue share if you use those data for something else. And then use AI to augment your capabilities, because you might not be able to hire all the people that you want at the beginning. So you use a person plus AI to actually work with you. But I was giving this example to you when we were having in the call.
Yeah.
So for example, when I was in McKinsey, my personal assistant was in Poland. I never saw her. She was amazing, but I actually never saw her.
Yeah.
So we're just connecting via WhatsApp, internal McKinsey chat, email, etc. The things we were doing for me is booking flights, booking meetings, manage my expenses. If this person is an AI agent, my way of interact will be the same. So as a sole entrepreneur, you can use AI to draft your first email, draft your first proposals, manage some of your time, manage some of your calendar. So you can use AI to augment yourself. So that's the way that I will use AI if I'm an entrepreneur. Or the example of my wife is I have few more people. Another example my wife uses, people are not able to really to visualize things so much. And when she sells birthdays and we say, I want a Paw Patrol or K-pop Demon Hunter birthday or whatever birthday, they want to see how it look like. And so she was using AI to do mock-up of the pictures about the balloon and the core configuration that she can give to the clients. And it's not a generic one. It's actually for that specific use case. And she was able to do it extremely fast without paying other people. And that helped her conversion, because people cannot just think about, say, oh, I have a balloon and I have the core, where is an arch. Actually, they can see. And that was a use case that by using AI, she was able to sell more birthdays and convert more, because people could see instead of just thinking how it could look like. Don't see generic images.
What about the workflow advantage? Because like your workflow, it's something if you look at, like other companies can also optimize. Like how do you gain the workflow advantage?
So the workflow advantage is, let's say you sell an outcome or a process. You are competing versus companies. We use a traditional workflow, which has human in the flow, human in the mix, whatever, no? So what you need to try to do is to rethink that workflow and sell the same outcome to a person by using AI. So for example, in the example of a call center, they're actually partnering with a company, and the company is selling the out, which is a call. In the same workflow, in the company before, it was a person or two person there, and the person needs to be hired, onboarded, trained, etc. Their workflow and their work advantage is that they train a model once and then it's done. So you need to think about what you want to try to sell to a person and say, in your own workflow, you embed the AI to be able to serve that much faster. I was reading an example, say, look, you sell swimming pools. And it was this example I was reading recently, that you can have how you scout is people look at the Google Maps from the area, they look houses without a swimming pool, and then they do a mock-up of how the house with a swimming pool will look like, and then they draft a proposal with those images, and then they send it out. This workflow of from a lead to a potential client, it can be automated. So your workflow advantage is you take a standard business, which is really manual, and all the steps are manual, and use AI to make it way faster or augment your way to actually potentially do it. So that's how you create a workflow advantage for your startup versus the traditional workflow. So you need to take away things I've done before, use AI, create a workflow where you can have the same outcome for the company, but a much lower cost for you. And so you can give some discount to them and you have them switch. That's why people say, Sequoia says, go first towards the services that a company already outsourced, because it's already money that they actually have out there. Now that a company is actually taking. So if you're able to address the same service at a lower cost because you use AI in your workflow, you are able to help them switch. And both are easier because the company doesn't have to fire people. They just have a clear cost reduction for them if you're able to give a same outcome at a lower cost. So that's what I would do to create a workflow advantage using AI as an entrepreneur.
One question behind you.
Thank you so much for that, Lucio. This is super insightful and interesting. But may I challenge a little bit? Because I think we're coming from a point of view that is a little bit, maybe a little too PE, liquidity event driven, and that's a big transaction of 5-7 year time frame by a company try to enhance the value, the EBITDA, and then I sell it to and I have potential buyers and so on. Now, here's how I am thinking. I'm more of a futurist. I'm a chief technology and AI officer. I'm a recent alumni. I did the MBA course here in London. And I'm always working with CEOs, CFOs ask me, Santiago, build the resiliency in the business model so we can be future-proof for the short, medium, long term. So we are after resiliency and new ways of working. Those two points, as opposed to focus on, hey, I'm going to be able to, on your workflows, do improvements or efficiencies for now. But I think the real competitive advantage is when you build business model or operating models that have the ability to be resilient and able to adapt despite what is occurring around you. Like, oh, Mr. Donald Trump, more tariffs, more wars, more geopolitical uncertainty, more energy cost raising, more food supply or kerosene fuel uncertainties in the UK or other countries, especially Southeast Asia. Companies running or depending or impacted by those different levels and types and categories of shocks. Economic, micro, notable economic, global supply will die at some point because the workflows were not built to be resilient to that. So the point I'm trying to implement more and more for the people that I work for, the PE firms, the scale-ups, innovation-driven global organizations, and I'm sure you can appreciate this if you are in UAE and now all of a sudden, for example, the tourism industry is gone. Nobody's as a tourist is flying to Dubai to spend time there because there's a war next door.
Yep.
So tourism is gone. I'm sure hotels are half empty. Yeah. Property is impacted. You never thought about that, and all of a sudden, yeah, it's gone. I am using Gen AI, ML data technology to for my CEO, CFOs, for the PE firm that I work for, to be able to leverage and be resilient, future-proof, both short, medium, long term, number one. And number two, new ways of working that are coming there. We're going to have a mix or hybrid environment where every person, not just managers, you will have different agents or robots or hierarchies or families of agents doing tasks for you.
Yep. We will. Yep.
And the task will change over time. And more we're going to be dependent on the quality and the ability of those agents to adapt to in shock situations and look at supply and demand and where new business opportunities might be. And we would to adapt our portfolio of products and services very quickly because every quarter or every year or every month, things might vary and change. That's my thinking process at the moment. Sorry.
No. So the
Hopefully that does that make sense or is that meaningful? Oh,
So it sticks easier for the private equity because they see the impact. So in private equity, as you mentioned, correctly say, they have a 5 to 7 year horizon to actually do the transformation and get value. But AI is applied everywhere. It's not, if you see the news, all the companies try to get AI. And in the future, will be companies who have been transformed with AI and transform the way you work with AI. And I agree with you that the company will have a set of agents working alongside the employees or replace some of the employees or augment the capabilities of the employees. And the transformation that I did in Australia, the company was already number one. It was the best, more profitable company already, but they still wanted to transform for long-term resistance because their margin were eroding, the competition were growing, there could be an external shock. So even if you are the best, you still need to stay ahead. And now to stay ahead, you need to be able to leverage these new tools, which is AI is not new. Machine learning is not new. So I wrote, and I told you, like my first time I wrote about autonomous agents was in 2006. It was my master degree thesis, and it was a network on autonomous agents for the supply chain. But now it's became way more mainstream because the interface is easier, the model being improving so much, and the application are getting easier to adopt. No, but like machine learning, advanced analytics, I've been and been here for like quite some time. Now it's now you can really delegate a part of the work. It's easier to delegate to interact with AI in the way that ChatGPT creates the interface and all the other models create the interface. But I agree with you. So PE is a easier and more receptive sector to understand the value and to try to get the value out of it and get the value out of it faster. But AI transformation is for all the companies. And in 12 to 16 months, there are companies which will embark in a new journey and will be faster, more resilient, more cost efficient, more easier way to adapt. Because if in the power levers, one is execution speed and one is risks. How do you able to make sure you tackle those? So not just EBITDA, but actually more agile, more resilient, more rebouncing back if there is anything. So be able to work in a faster way. And AI can do that. And AI is changing a lot of things. Even the consulting, now you think people don't want a consulting team spending like 3-4 weeks to think about the first solution. I want a first solution much faster, maybe leveraging AI, and then have real experts challenging that and really go deep into a few things and prove some of the things. So I don't disagree with you at all.
yeah, thank you. That resiliency point is super important for putting my point of view for the short, medium, long term, rather than running towards a liquidity event in 5 or 7 years and optimize for that liquidity event, and then okay, and another buyer will take care of the next 5 or 7 years, right? I think you need to think more like an Amazon or Apple, right? They're not only started as a bookstore, and you look at them where they are at now, right? Or Apple, or any other organization, how their business model evolve continuously. We just need to use AI to even accelerate that evolution.
Yeah. You know what? I told to my wife, she has a kids playground there. Yeah? She also has psychology. I told her, you're not a kids playground there anymore. You're now a tech company. and the push that I have is she is now, because of exactly because of what you said. So because of what's happening in Dubai, we have to think about new ways of creating revenues out of the kids playground. Why? Because there are way less kids. The kids left, the family left, the tourists left. So how do we add the AI on top of it and digital layer on top of it to create additional revenue streams? And so now we have kids music. So she launched a line of music which is with a certain beats and a certain frequency and a certain tones for the kids to be more calm, or so there is that line. Now she's starting the cartoons, and then we're going to be maybe other stuff. So the agents, maybe we sell the agents to other kids playground. So I agree with you, AI is helping you to be resilient and be resilient in a moment in which Dubai is very disrupted. And so how do we use AI to create more revenue streams? So we are trying to transform a kids playground into a tech company.
Thank you so much for the talk, Lucio. I'm Bharat. I'm in the main program this year. Anyway, and as someone who's just going to start out his professional career, my question is more around we are at a time now where there's more and more market acceptance, AI agents to automate more of the routine tasks for each of the firms today. As someone who's just going to start out at the multi level in any organization, what are some things that I should work on today so that I become resilient in the next 15 years? Because there are going to be more and more developments coming each couple of years from now on.
Yeah.
And as human resource, we also need to, upgrade ourselves so that we remain relevant in that world.
So the advice I will give you is you need to learn how to use AI to augment your capability because you will compete with people actually using it. So it should be you, the company will not hire you, it will hire you plus your suite of knowledge about AI, which augment your productivity and your capabilities. And I think that some consulting firms are now starting to ask people how they use AI, how they can use AI to actually improve. To be honest with you, if I ask a person, are you using AI or do you use AI to become faster? And when I ask him question or ask him to produce something for me, he will not even use it or think about it. You are at a disadvantage. So you need to, we're not going to all be replaced. And AI will give possibility to create more companies or work will transform, things will transform. But we are in a pivotal moment in which things are changing. So you want to be in a way be able to ride that transformation and use those tools rather than being replaced by those tools.
Yeah. Is that all? Have you covered all? Question time.
Do you think then companies will pay a premium for kind of entry level workers who use AI so that they're better off hiring someone who can use AI than just AI themselves? Do you think companies will pay a premium?
I don't think company would pay a premium. I think company will give you a job. So there is some theory that say a consulting firm from a pyramid will become a diamond or an inverted pyramid because you have the AI tool who helps to accelerate some of the data requests, the initial analysis, the initial PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah.
And those things that, to be honest with you, when I joined McKinsey, it was 2006, McKinsey has some amazing competitive advantage versus everybody else. We had an extreme and very distinctive support services and research and information analysis and network of experts and database of framework analysis, how to do projects, which was really global. But if you see fast forward 20 years, some of those competitive advantage really eroded because you can have AI helping you with framework, you can have AI helping you with analysis, you can have AI helping you with making slides, or help you craft your storyline or be more sharp in your storyline, be more sharp in your reviews and compress some of those. What still remains is you need to be expert. You need to know things. You need to be across your peers, somebody who has a bit of thought leadership to distinguish yourself from the rest. Because if you are just one across everybody else, why you? So if you are the guy who actually built something, develop something, try something, showcase that you can do something with AI, without AI, show some entrepreneurship, show some willingness to learn, that can make you distinctive and get you access to that. I wrote the book, and the book helped me to connect with way more people from really across the globe. And I was chatting with people from US to Asia and back here in the school because you really need to push yourself to remain relevant. And in a way of changes, you need to remain relevant and resilient as work will change.
Can I add or answer your question a little bit more?
Yeah, sure.
I'm lonely too, and say I think it's very, very important now to start a portfolio career as early as you can. Portfolio career where you have different streams of income. You might be an expert to have capabilities to earn money from more than one way. I'll give you an example myself. My primary job is Chief Technology and AI Officer, but I also do freelance and contract work on the side. But I also, because I love the sports and fitness, I became a certified fitness coach. And guess what? My last CEO, CFO, they called me and said, "Hey, Santiago, you're so good at fitness. Come, you're gonna be my fitness coach." And I was his fitness coach, and he got me to meetings with other CEOs, CFOs, and that way I got more business through networking. I'm also trying to build up some apps that could buy or sell some digital resources online, and with that, trying to earn money 24/7 while hopefully retire early. So I'm always thinking different ways, having parallel different ways to earn money because if you depend on one job, like I used to work for Deutsche Bank Investment Bank for many years in New York City, and all of a sudden that source of income stopped after many years, almost 10 years working for them. They said, okay, we don't need you anymore. And so I had to become resilient and find different ways, but more than one way at a time. I also bought a property and I'm renting a property, so I'm earning money that way. But I didn't learn about this portfolio career or multiple ways of income until I came to LBS. If I had known it when I was 20 or 21, I could help go and do that from age 20 or 21. Probably it was a bit later. It was my 2 penny suggestion if you want to consider diversify.
Lucky for us.
Yeah, I have a further question. So you were associate partner at McKinsey and also external like advisor, and then now chief of staff.
Uh, I guess I wanted to ask you, with this, AI transformation agent will come in trying to automate. I don't know, like, do you think, not to the question, do you think McKinsey and BCG still have the best tools to help companies to do that? Or is it more at the hand of, like yesterday we had a presentation by Cursor, or, like a while ago, 11 Lab, those AI companies themselves to basically help companies to automate?
Right. So I think there is a role for everybody. So I don't think that the consulting firm are the best for the technology part. And when we try to get into all the different things like McKinsey Digital, BCG X, or whatever, they still have a cost base which is significantly higher. So now what you see is a partnership. So I think a few weeks ago, max 1 or 2 months ago, McKinsey and a few other partner with Anthropic and OpenAI. So all of them partner with the consulting firm to be complementary. So they're not going to be replacing OpenAI or Anthropic, but they can add on top, because what we were discussing before is the change management, embedding AI into the transformation, really get the value out of AI. In this, consulting still add value, and that will be a way for consulting for the next few years. Then we'll see. Then we'll see in a few years down the line. But there is some still value in external advisory, like senior external advisory, to really brainstorm ideas, to really get you a global perspective. But I don't think the consulting will go into AI or technology, because there is already both companies. They can partner together, as they are currently doing, to actually deploy both inside the companies, as the company transform. So I think in the last 10, 15 years, while the consulting were trying to grow across all the different sectors, going to digital, going to implementations, maybe they will be scaling a bit back into really distinctive advisory and capability building and change management, and have a technology company that they're partnering with to provide both stack.
And quickly went up about the like track you made from consulting to chief of staff.
Yeah.
I mean, like for people finishing LBS MBA,
They have both options. Like, where would you suggest them to go into? Like a chief of staff role at a fast-growing company, start perhaps Series A, or do strategy consulting?
for like learning
Yeah.
future kind of progression.
So I was in consulting. So I joined LBS from McKinsey. I did the internship in Google while I was LBS, and then I went back to McKinsey. So consulting at least 10, 15 years ago was a way for you to really see multiple things and really get both the brand equity and the experience. Because every few months I was jumping from a project to another. There was a straight, very easy career growth and predictability about the job. I was learning a lot, I had a great network. So I felt it was valuable for me to actually do consulting. The chief of staff, and before when I was in Pure Harvest, which was an ag tech company where I was a chief strategy officer, was a way to go in a company where I can really create impact and see the impact. Because for example, in Pure Harvest, I joined, and then after I joined, after a few months, I was in Korea talking to some investors, and when we raised $180 million, and then we took that $100 million and we bought and built farms in the Middle East. When we got land in Singapore, we were try to do an M&A in US. And the things that I really like in that transition is the concept that I was learning McKinsey and I thinking about the strategy and the growth when I was actually doing it and I was living those decisions. No, but for me, it was my advice I would give to a younger colleague is try to go in a place where you can learn a lot. So if it is a really a good startup, because a startup will give you a lot of risk because it can go well, but it also can go bad. And 9 out of 10 startups will actually fail. No, so you're taking a lot of risk. And in Italy, where it's not a concept like in US, in California, where it's fine, you can jump from one startup to another. Startup doesn't go well, doesn't matter, you still have a learning. Depends what you want to invest on. I think be able to be resilient, be able to go and jump from one sector to another, get the experience of a consulting because it gives you the network, the diversity. It can help you go back to multiple sectors. Could be a good entry strategy. But if you think that you really believe in the company you join, you really think you're gonna learn a lot, you really think that that company will give you, as a chief of staff, I think the beauty of a chief of staff is you have visibility across the full company. No, and in my role as chief of staff, I also relate to the board and I prepare the board material and I prepare investor materials and I look after the strategy and the transformation office. So all the transformational activities inside the company. So it really depends what is your scope as a chief of staff, because it can be anything enough. It can be a glorified assistant to the CEO, or you can actually have more meat to be like in charge of the strategy, the PMO, or transformation, or the board, or everything else. It depends what you think can give you more learning. And your gut feeling sometimes will tell you that that's a great opportunity, you want to double down, invest. Consulting, branded consulting is probably less risky because you give you the brand, the salary, the expertise, and then you can still go out later on. Is a risk return, is a different risk return.
Perhaps it's the risk side.
Yeah. Like if someone join a Series A, it doesn't work, they learn and grow, they could join another company and deliver the value.
But maybe the brand equity from McKinsey
Yeah.
and you.
Yeah, because the network, maybe you realize it later in your career, but network is actually very important. I'm gonna see some of my friends when I was an analyst in McKinsey, I still am in touch now for after 20 years. So some of the network are very strong. And because you've been together in the same period of the life and you can still stay in touch. And later on in the future, they can help you with some introduction. They can help you with helping your startup. The value of a network, the LBS network, or some of the larger companies have, like the P&G for the marketing. They're an amazing network in all marketing and sales role after. They stays with you. The McKinsey for ex-consultant, maybe after 10, 15 years, made career somewhere else. You can still stay in touch. The investment banking, in the all asset management or all funds, there is a lot of ex-banker or ex-investment banking. And those networks still has value. So those 2 years immediately after can also help you to build an additional network to your school network that you can leverage later on, stay in touch.
Amazing. With this, I think we can wrap up our talk. Thank you everyone for joining in. And thanks, Lucio, for coming here. It's been a pleasure hosting you.